I think Trump was politically stupid about this whole issue. I think his denial was so instant and so forthright that he couldn't possibly have done the drawing, that he actually set a trap for himself.
And, that sense of conspiracy, which is at the centre of MAGAism and Trump, he's lived by the sword and now he is dying by the swords. There are Republicans and MAGA people who wanted to see these documents, and it is deeply unfortunate for them that it happens to cohere around their leader, Trump himself.
But there were clearly a lot of people who contributed to that book who understood what Epstein's proclivities were. It's Emily.
It's Lewis, and these latest documents which have come from the Democrats on this key congressional committee which have been looking into Jeffrey Epstein and the relationship that he had with Donald Trump and others. I mean, explosive is the cliche. I think that's fair. A lot of focus is coming on a note and sexually suggestive drawing containing what appears to be Donald Trump's signature that was included in a book for Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday in 2003, a drawing that Trump is insisting he did not create. This drawing is a very weird figure of what appears to be a naked woman with Donald in Trump's signature written below her waist. And it says, among other things, there's a sort of weird kind of like what appears to be an imagined conversation between Trump and Epstein, which concludes with Donald saying, "A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday. And may every day be another wonderful secret."
Yeah, just to take you back to how this story originated, it was first reported by the Wall Street Journal 2 months ago in July, and Trump denied it. He denied it fervently. He denied the existence of the picture, the existence of the book. He said he hadn't done the drawing, and he even went so far as to sue, essentially to take Rupert Murdoch's Wall Street Journal to court because he said it couldn't possibly be true. And those around him called it a Democrat hoax. They said it was a crude invention. And that is why the appearance of this book, we can see it, we can actually go through it page by page, has been the real bombshell, because it was turned over by the Jeffrey Epstein estate. In other words, this book existed within the Epstein estate, and it was only given over to the House, Congress, to an oversight committee in response to a subpoena. In other words, a legal challenge which says we need to see the book. Now, the New York Times has done quite a long piece comparing the Donald Trump signature on that drawing to many of his signatures throughout the years. And we can honestly even add one of our own, because I received a signed photograph from Donald Trump after I'd interviewed him, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and his signature is there for all to see in gold Sharpie. And it is pretty unmistakably the same one, I would say, that is on that drawing. But the point about this is, I guess, that when you've gone through the book and you've started to understand the tenor of some of those messages, you suddenly get what's at stake here. Because, to put it mildly, the Donald Trump drawing is, I would say, actually one of the least offensive. We've combed through some of that book and it is dark and it is disgusting. There are pictures of drawings of Epstein lying on a beach being massaged and giving balloons to children. They're literally showing him as the figure giving out balloons to children. The implication is pretty clear. There's another one which has the word children half redacted, so you can see some of the letters and not the other. There are pictures of lions and zebras having sex. I don't know how that fits into his sexuality, and I'm probably not going to go there. There are pictures of a scout hut talking about Boy Scouts. I'm just trying to give you a sense that in this book are messages from a lot of people who clearly knew the character of the man they were dealing with. I'm not saying that everybody who contributed to it knew, but there were clearly a lot of people who contributed to that book who understood what Epstein's proclivities were. There is even a message from our own ambassador in Washington, Peter Mandelson, calling Epstein a great pal. And I'm actually going to read you out a bit more of the message. He says, "No sooner were you used to having him around, you'd suddenly be left alone again." He calls Epstein an intelligent, sharp-witted man, mysterious, who parachutes into your life. He left you with some interesting friends to entertain instead, or just some dogs to keep you company. He wasn't always so keen on them. And then he'd parachute back in. You'd meet him in one of his glorious homes he likes to share with his friends, yum yum. But wherever he is in the world, he remains my best pal. Now, Lord Mandelson has been contacted for a response, and he said at the time, he regretted ever being introduced to Epstein. He regretted the introduction of Epstein. You understand that as a voice of regret, but it doesn't really answer the question of why, on the man's 50th birthday, he's calling him his best pal. I think there are quite a lot of questions that this book raises, and not least Bill Clinton. President Clinton is in the book as well, talking about the kind of entertainment that Epstein liked. There are lots of names, they're not redacted. You can go through the list and see for yourself just what people around Epstein were saying about him, drawing for him, or thought about him.
Yeah, and it is a trove of potential stories and potential deep embarrassment and worse for those associated with it. I mean, the book spans to more than 200 pages. It's bound into 3 volumes, collection of letters, photographs, drawings from dozens of people that Epstein knew. But of course, the political heat is going to be strongest and shine brightest on Trump himself, obviously, because he's the president. And, we've talked so many times, Emily, and with John as well, sort of day in, day out covering this sort of second Trump term, how different it has felt since the beginning, since the first one, not least because Trump feels so much more hegemonic, so much more powerful. He feels there are virtually no checks on his power anymore. Congress has basically gone to sleep. The Supreme Court is doing whatever he wants. He has been king of all he surveyed. The one thing which has been a cloud on that political horizon, and a dark one at that, is this Epstein scandal and these documents. It is the one thing where Trump and his administration, this new administration, this imperial kind of government now, have seemed genuinely rattled and genuinely scared. And in the reaction, since these documents appeared, they have again had that same sense of brittleness. His spokesperson, and from the White House podium, again, denying that this is him, trying to convince everybody that it's a complete fake. But it rings hollow, and it rings hollow not least because, yes, there have been, furious reactions again from Democrats. You've seen Patty Murray, for example, the Democratic senator, tweeting, this is revolting. Clearly some truly sick stuff was going on between Trump and Epstein. There is no more pretending. So you're seeing that. But the point as well is this is one of the rare moments of at least some kind of sense of bipartisanship in Washington when you've had Republicans, because Trump has, as we've discussed before, Trump himself and his team have, and those in the MAGA movement have been some of those in the past who have been talking about these files, as in these files and so on. And, that sense of conspiracy, which is at the center of MAGAism and Trump, he's lived by the sword, and now he is dying by the swords. There are Republicans and MAGA people who wanted to see these documents, and it is deeply unfortunate for them that it happens to cohere around their leader, Trump himself.
I think Trump was politically stupid about this whole issue. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. I think his denial was so instant and so forthright that he couldn't possibly have done the drawing, that he actually set a trap for himself. As an example, I mean, if I was accused of something, let's say I was accused of treading on a kid's toe, right? I could either come out and go, there is no way on earth I've ever trodden on a kid's toe. That would be appalling and abusive and absolutely shocking. I did not do that. Or I could just say, oh, I hope I didn't do that. Oh, it might have been me, but,
It was a long time ago,
I apologise and I hope it wasn't. And by denying it so outrightly, he's basically set himself up as having to acknowledge that the thing itself was really bad. And the person who's been incredibly politically astute, I think, is J.D. Vance. Now, at the time, we started wondering where the leak had come from, where this story had come from. And we are no closer, it has to be said, to knowing that. But one person who comes out of this quite well is potentially J.D. Vance. Because if I take you back to what he wrote on X at the time, he says, the Wall Street Journal should be ashamed for publishing it. Where is this letter? Would you be shocked to learn they never showed it to us before publishing it? Does anyone honestly believe this sounds like Donald Trump? Now, those three questions he asks have all now been proved wrong. Where is the letter? Well, it's here. They never showed it to us before publishing it. Well, now we're all seeing it. Does it honestly sound like Donald Trump? Well, yes, actually it does. There is a bit of your brain that might be thinking in extraordinary ways that the vice president has set the president up for a fall here. He's not saying, oh, stop concentrating on nonsense, we've got big work to do. He's not saying, oh, everyone might have contributed to a friend's birthday book or done a silly drawing. He's saying it couldn't possibly exist. It doesn't sound like Donald Trump. The Wall Street Journal is making up the entire story. And there are those, I think, around the president and possibly in the Democrat Party too, who just are starting to wonder whether this is a trap that J.D. Vance has laid rather perfectly for his own boss.
One historian once said that American politics is conducted in a paranoid style, right? And there has always been that strain of paranoia, anti-elite, populist politics in the United States from the very beginning. It's one of the things that makes its political culture distinctive. That has been at the center of MAGAism and Trump, right? The whole critique, the whole thesis is that there are a group of elites who are hiding things from you.
Yeah.
And that is at the center of Trump's politics. He has cultivated that. He has incubated it. He has amplified it. He's made that paranoid style, that strain. It was always there in the background. He's brought it right to the foreground. It's the center of his politics. He is now suffering by that very act. He has basically taken that sword and put it on himself, precisely for that reason you say, Emily, which is that it would have been smarter to acknowledge the fact that the truth, which is what everyone knows, which is they had a relationship and they had a friendship. It fizzled out in the mid-2000s. He could credibly claim that he didn't know about Epstein's worst excesses, which is convenient enough. What all of these people who knew this man terribly, terribly well all claim that actually, I had no idea he was doing all of that. But that would at least have been something to cling to. Instead, he is clinging clearly to fiction, which is basically that he had almost no relationship with it at all, and that therefore any of these documents must be and are bound to be fake. Trump's problem is that he has basically lobbed grenades from the outside for a very, very long time. He is the establishment now. He is the state now. He is the deep state that he has railed against for so long, for year after year after year. So he finds himself basically in a position of his own making. And that is why on this one issue, why it's so politically noxious for him, but it's also why on this one issue that he finds even his foot soldiers in the Republican Party, in the House of Representatives himself, having actually some space between them and the president. Because, it's that thing about conspiracy theories, right? If you're a conspiracy theorist, ultimately, the thing that you want most in the world is to find actually that even the people on your side are part of it. That is basically the kind of place in which Trump now finds himself.
So before we go, let's just bring you up to date with the latest on the Labour deputy leadership race. We've got a few contenders coming into it now, all women. Bridget Phillipson is going to stand for the deputy leader. Emily Thornberry has thrown her hat in. Lucy Powell, who had that rather strong endorsement from Andy Burnham at the weekend, has announced she's a candidate. And in the last few minutes, we've also heard that Paula Barker, the Liverpool MP, will go for it as well. These are all added to Belle Ribeiro-Addy, who launched her campaign last night with a dig at how ridiculously short she thought the time span was for getting your nomination in. It's just 3 days. And I guess from amongst those now, don't forget, they have to find 80 MPs supporting them. So any candidate who wants to make it over the threshold needs 80. And I guess that's where the race is going to sit. Are they going to go for Bridget Phillipson, who is very much part of the cabinet, the infrastructure around Starmer? Are they going to go for Lucy Powell, who's just been sacked, probably hasn't got many nice things to say about her old boss right now? Or Emily Thornberry, who is this very outspoken character who, again, hasn't quite been led into the tent by Starmer, but is kind of appreciated more widely in the party.
Yeah, and I think even in the last few hours, you have basically seen exactly why, as we've been saying for the last few days, Number 10 did not want this contest. Think about what Number 10 did with the reshuffle. They decided on various key measures to try to sharpen their focus, sharpen their message, particularly on a few key things, including things more on the sort of authoritarian right of the Labour Party, on small boats, on moving to the, some on the left would think moving to the right in various different areas. Whilst all of that is happening, there is now a deputy leadership contest, which by its very definition, because its electorate is not the electorate at large, but instead the members of the Labour Party and the institutions of the Labour Party, like the trade unions and other organisations and so on, which are by definition to the left of where the overall electorate is, you are going to have this deputy leadership contest pushing and pushing and pushing the agenda, the conversation before the Labour Party conference in October, to the left. And just look, for example, on Emily Thornberry, what she's tweeted today. She says, I'm running for deputy leader of the Labour Party. We fought hard for a Labour government, but we've made mistakes and we must listen. Welfare, Gaza, wealth tax, changes to come on send. I'll be a voice for the membership, the unions, the PLP, and our constituents, not just nod along. So there you have Thornberry on basically in the run-up to that, not just the Labour Party conference, but that crucial second Rachel Reeves budget, basically coming out for a wealth tax. All of the incentives on this conversation are going to be on the left and pushing towards the left. So you may have a deputy leader elected before that budget who is basically run on a wealth tax ticket. That is deeply, deeply awkward for Starmer. And likewise, on Gaza, there is such discontent in the Labour Party, and this is going to be a central issue of this campaign, which again is something which is a running sore and deeply difficult for Number 10 and Starmer. It's a nightmarish situation.
Yeah, and before we go, we should just tell you that the French Prime Minister the outgoing Prime Minister who lost his confidence vote around this time yesterday, has delivered a parting shot saying, don't let France become like Britain. Thanks, mate. I don't think you're in such great shape right now.
Merci beaucoup, Francois.
Yeah. We'll have more
Thanks
of that.
for the advice, pal.
Yeah, exactly. Just what we need.
Au revoir.
Au revoir. Bye for now.
À bientôt.
The Newsagents. This is a Global Player original podcast.